Hello, everyone, and welcome to RHAP's current coverage of Jet Lag, the game. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, here today to talk to two of the jet laggers that jet lag. It's Adam and Ben. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing well. How are you? Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Please.
So when we start the recording, it shows your little logo. You have that little animation, which is fun. What's the bell all about? What's the significance of the bell?
Yeah.
Yes, this is deep lore for Rob as a podcast. So I am not Rob Sesternino. I am Taran Armstrong. I do Big Brother coverage here on Rob as a podcast, but Rob started the podcast. He was on Survivor. When he started the podcast, it was like 15 plus years ago. And
Sure.
he was very much kind of like in the vein of a radio show guy, because that was like what podcasting felt like back then. And so we had like little props. And he was kind of a prop guy on Survivor too. He brought like a Magic 8 Ball. It was very famous. And so he had a bell and he would just ding the bell, like when he made a good joke or something.
When he himself made a good joke, he would ding the bell.
Yeah. One time Rachel Riley came and dinged the bell a lot on her own, but you know.
Fascinating.
We could really stand to be more prop forward on our show.
Yeah. No, well, I feel like you have props with some frequency. I feel like
I do. I have
like
some
you're
props
very
this
much
season.
the most likely to have a prop.
Well, I haven't introduced him, but Ben is also here as well.
I'm here.
How you doing, Ben?
I'm good. My glasses are broken. It's pissing me off. Look at this. I could pop it right out.
Well, I don't. Okay.
What the hell?
Doesn't that suck? I gotta go to Warby Parker after this.
Yeah, I mean that was quite the demonstration. Came right at the camera lens.
Yes, and you may note that we are missing Sam. Sam was supposed to be on the podcast, but last minute something unavoidable came up, and so you are stuck simply with two special boys instead of three.
Two special boys instead of three. Yes. Well, two of the I guess spoilers already. We're here to talk about All Stars Tag season 15 of Jet Lag, the game. We will of course be talking about the results of that game. And those results, of course, were that we currently have the first and second place finishers on the podcast today.
This is true.
Actually, we told Sam he couldn't be on today because he only got third, and so he was a bad representation of the show, and we're
relegated.
He got cooked too much, so he can't be on. Although I will note, I mean, I am how deserving I am of the second place is highly questionable, given that I almost single-handedly sabotaged that run and got us caught. I saw a lot of comments at the end of episode 5 being like, oh my gosh, like Adam on his own just ruined their whole run. And the only reason it wasn't ruined was pure luck from Deutsche Bahn being so bad. I entirely pushed us in the wrong strategic direction there.
And you're talking about the decision to
go
wait
to Castle.
For later train
wait and go to Castle.
Although I will say we really thought we were about to get caught if we went on that other train. Like we really did all think that. So.
Yeah, I mean we can get into that later, but it in context, it was obviously the wrong call. Knowing everything, I think in the moment there is some legit justification for it, but I think obviously, inarguably, the wrong decision given what was actually the state of the game.
Well, I do have a question about the first and second place status, because when we're talking about jet lag stats, what does this do?
I don't think it affects
first
them.
And second.
I think that second place, given that we've never done it before, I don't think it ends up reflected in the stats. I don't believe.
We just
does it?
Negate your participation in second place.
I believe the wins count trophies, and I don't know that a certificate of merit. You know, I've seen people have taken various approaches to this. Some people have counted it as a half win. I've seen some people count like hide and seek NYC as a half.
Officially, we have stated that hide and seek NYC does not count, but others can make their own determinations. I would be happy for second place to count as a half win and hide and seek NYC to count as a half win. I think that would be fair. And then that gives you a whole extra win.
It does, yeah, in total. So I'm pleased with this interpretation. An interpretation that I did not come up with myself, mind you. This is simply what's happening on Reddit.
Mm.
Oh,
well,
wait.
This is also, I guess, what happens when you.
This is something that I thought might happen. The plumber is here to fix my sink, folks.
Okay.
Hello.
Listen, we all need to fix sinks.
Oh, sorry. I can't talk right now. I'll call you back later. It wasn't even the plumber. It was my dentist, folks. But I answered it because I thought it was the plumber. The plumber is coming any minute now to fix our sink.
Wow, this suspense
so I have
is
to
killing me.
And you guys don't really edit your podcast that much, so this might stay in because it wasn't a spoiler. It was just a little moment.
It wasn't a spoiler, and it didn't even take that long. I feel like
it was quick. We were in and out.
The cat's out of the bags, folks. Adam has a sink. He has teeth. They know
No, Ben. I don't. That's the problem. I don't have a sink right now. My sink.
He doesn't have a sink.
No sink.
But
I need a new one. My sink has been removed, and
you're
getting
a whole new
sink.
We probably shouldn't get into this.
A new faucet, I guess. Okay. What's a sink? We should get into that. No, it's fine.
What is
Taran,
a sink?
Do you have I feel like we keep trying to force your podcast off the rails, but we're going to be really
okay.
From
Taran, we're on the rails. What do you want?
Well, fittingly, this season was not very on the rails.
No.
Well, it was on.
Or there were too many things on the rails this season.
There were a lot of trains. They were on the rails.
There were too many things in the way of the trains, I think.
Well, this is true. Yes. No, it is true that this season. Well, it sort of, I think, harkens back to early jet lag when things were especially capable of really getting out of hand. I mean, one thing that we have said many times is we would never design tag today the way we originally designed it, where it has the potential to end early.
Goodness, no. We
would not do this. But the game design is the game design, and so it. We had gotten through it 3 times without this happening. And then here you go. This game, it does, I think, have some weaknesses, right? And we saw, I would say, more of them come up in this season than in prior seasons.
What is really interesting, though, is that because of the precedent set by the last 3 tag seasons where, it ended not by someone reaching their end location, but by the sort of secondary win mechanic. People, I think, really felt like someone getting to their end location was almost the game breaking, which is crazy because it's well, that's actually how you're supposed to win. We expect that to happen. Although, again, we hope that it doesn't. It's kind of, again, it's a very weird format in that way. And again, I think tag, more than a lot of our games, is really vulnerable to just it could play out so many different ways, and half of those are really interesting and half of them are not interesting. And I think that there were segments of this that were really interesting. I think there were segments of this that were much weaker. And that's just how it goes.
Well, let me tell you my experience of watching the season. Because first of all, obviously, I was very excited. All-Stars tag. We're seeing Toby. We're seeing Michelle. I thought Brian was so wonderful this season. He was so much fun to watch. And it's tag. Tag is I think always a good time. And I was super excited. The thing I like about, and I've talked about this before, but the thing I really like about your show, as somebody that watches a lot of competitive reality television, like on proper networks and such, or television networks, I should say. I love that it feels like anything can happen on your show. And as I was talking about this season with some people from my community, some of them were new to the show. I was able to say yeah, Adam and Michelle are closing in on their end game, but it's only halfway through the season. That doesn't mean they're not going to win. Like they actually could win right now. Like normally you'd be like, it's episode 3.
Right.
They
Right.
get hot. But that's not the case. And it's sort of the same thing as the season progressed. Just like, okay, you did win. Now we're doing second place. And every time I find myself going to the instinct of like, okay, this cliffhanger, obviously they wouldn't have put a cliffhanger here if this was the result, because then it wouldn't make any sense moving forward. But it's like, no, that's not really the case. Like really, everything is open. And I was convinced, I was sure that Sam, Toby, and Michelle were going to catch you guys, and that surely the end result of the game would be them trying to get back to their zone.
Yes.
And that also didn't happen. So I really enjoyed the season. And I thought it was a very fun time. I really, in particular, loved 3 teams. I thought that was very fun. I thought Team Chasers was really cool. I was excited to see the win. I think the one downside was that it got rid of the 3 teams sooner than I would have liked.
Yeah.
But I also
a
really
little bit
liked
of a bummer.
3 people teams. I liked the 3-person teams. I thought the dynamic of 3 people in a team was very fun as well.
Yeah, that wasn't as much of a problem as we were worried, because we for the longest time have sort of thought you can't really have more than 2 people on a team because it's going to be too hard to like film and talk and do the whole thing. But I thought it was pretty great and dynamic and fun. And likewise, I think we were quite worried about having 3 teams because, you know, juggling 3 perspectives makes for a lot more to follow and a lot more narrative complexity than just back and forth. But I thought it worked okay.
No, I agree. I was very happy with the 3-team, setup overall. But yeah, it does lead to, it leads to design complexity that then led to other, I think, like knock-on effects. Like one thing that I think was complicated about the 3-team is that it kind of necessitated the creation of the free freeze, but then we ended up in a situation where that freeze was not quite used as intended, right? It was used on the team that was already closest to you, right? In normal tag rules, Michelle and I would have just gotten caught immediately. Instead, we win the game on the strength of this freeze, which is really more intended to deal with a different thing. But it's a tough needle to thread a little bit with how you handle the existence of the second team between rounds, really, because they might end up ahead of you in a way that totally pins you down.
At the same time, though, like if you hadn't used the freeze and you had been just immediately caught, that's also not necessarily a desirable outcome, right? Like, so, but yeah, I think, the power-ups, and then I think I also heard you guys mention on the layover that obviously you had designed the challenges for 2-person teams, not 3-person teams, and that sort of added an extra element of how doable they were, I think, in a quick time period. And so, and you guys mentioned this, that you wanted to talk, I think, about this. So my experience was I loved the season. In preparation for this interview, I hadn't been on the Reddit. So I was like, let me see what other people are thinking. And I open up the Reddit thread, and it's just chaos in there. It felt like it was like
That's what Reddit's for, though.
I guess so, yeah. Interestingly, I checked the YouTube comments today, and I felt like the YouTube comments were very positive on the finale, but the Reddit thread from last week from the Nebula episode were not as positive, I would say.
Here's the thing:
very split.
Well, I think that it's like, and this you'll go. I mean, if you go to the Survivor Reddit, it's the same thing. You go to the Amazing Race subreddit, it's the same thing.
Those places are places for people to complain.
Yeah, I think it's like if you're just watching and casually leaving a comment on YouTube, like chances are you're not really interested in thinking that critically about it, and you're just like, all the YouTube comments are like, now this is epic. And it's like, okay, great. But if you're on Reddit and you're like getting into the Reddit threads, like you want to think really deeply about this stuff. And I think that's good and fine. But yes, no, I do think that the challenge balancing this season left something to be desired. And I think that's a fair critique.
Yeah, I would say that is the most reasonable critique of the season is that I do think ultimately the challenges were a little bit too easy. But I think that part of the complexity there is that it's a combination of a few things. One, I think the challenges were a little too easy. Two, I think that Michelle and I ended up in a weirdly advantageous spot timetable wise. Additionally, Michelle and I got really lucky with which challenges we pulled when. And the 3-team format ended up in a situation where one team, you know, there was some weird stranding stuff happening. So like, I think that what's interesting is that like, take the hypothetical. Take the hypothetical where Ben and Brian's flight, like, or take the hypothetical where Michelle's and my route is like 20 minutes slower than it actually ended up being, right? In that scenario, Ben and Brian catch us before Zermatt. And then if we assume the scenario where, first of all, they're in a pretty sticky situation because Sam and Toby are in front of them. They're going to have to deal with that. Plus, assuming that there's not the insanity that happens later, like we would have been caught by them leaving Zermatt in the second place round multiple times, right? So like, if we were to, again, just pretend like one thing is different, Michelle and I, even with all the luck we got, even with, you know, card pulls and everything, are 20 minutes slower on some connection. The entire game, I think, actually functions great with no issues, right? So I do agree. Like, I do agree that the challenges were probably tuned a little easy. I think that a lot of people pointed out the air conditioning one was like, oh, cherry on top of this problem. The truth is that the air conditioning one was put there as basically a gimme. We were like, it's fun to have a few that are really, really easy. I mean, I'd say it was even easier. You know, we were in a train station in a place where it ended up being completely trivial. Like, it is an example of, you know, probably shouldn't have thrown that in, but I think that it is complicated in the sense of like, yes, challenges were a little too easy, but they were exacerbated by the luck of challenges being drawn at certain times. They were exacerbated by the Zermatt of it all. And then they were exacerbated by just like the specific ways that some of these timelines played out. Whereas if things had gone just slightly differently, I don't think we would be getting really any of, no one would really, I think, be pointing this out.
Yeah, I will, and like, to reinforce that, like, I think that people have in this head this narrative that like we really changed the balance of the challenges a lot, and that is what like affected everything, and it's really not that true. Like, I think we barely changed the balance of various challenges, and a lot of the challenges, or a lot of the cards that people are pointing to as being problematic, like the no phone curse being worth 1,500, like that has been in every tag season, and it's been the same. It's been worth the same. Like,
and it caused a huge problem for me in season 1, right?
Yeah.
In season 1 of tag.
I mean, that would be devastating under most circumstances.
Many circumstances, just not under the specific circumstances that we were in.
So I do think it's like, I don't know, was it the balance of challenges? Maybe, kind of, but it was also just like, it kind of came down to the right challenges were pulled at the right time, and a bunch of other stuff lined up that made it basically impossible to stop them. But that could have happened in any other tag season, I think, almost just as easily.
But I do want to take the critique seriously. Like, I don't want to dodge it entirely. Like, I do agree. And we agreed afterwards. We were like, yeah, probably tuned the challenges a little easy, or I would even say more so like too quick. You could do a lot of them real fast, which I think was a weakness. And then I think the other thing, this is something that I think is a design flaw, but also is something that's always been the case. Zermatt is, I think, we learned this season, a little busted as a final destination, right? This has never come up because nobody's ever made it close enough to Zermatt to really take advantage of this. But like, I think that it is the case that the way that the Swiss train network classifies low speed versus high speed trains, and the fact that you can just do a straight shot to Zermatt, does mean that it is unbalanced as a final location. I think if we were going to play tag again, we would have to take a close look at that and potentially reconsider. I don't know that we would play on this map again necessarily. If we did, I think we might need to make adjustments. I'm not sure. But that is, I think, legit true that Zermatt is kind of a little bit busted as an end location. But Zermatt's been an end location for 2 previous seasons where it wasn't a problem. And so I think it's more baked into the game. And frankly, I think it was something that I took advantage of because I realized that Zermatt seemed kind of busted. I talk about this in the episodes. In season 3 of Tag in Italy, when Sam made it into Switzerland, we sort of realized that Switzerland was kind of busted in Tag because the trains are not classified as high speed, but they're the fastest ones.
Right.
And so that was a big reason why Michelle and I chose Zermatt, is we were like, we're going to take advantage of this.
What do you think is the likely fix for that? Do you just alter the cost of those trains for that area? Do you?
It's complicated.
It is complicated. I think there are various things we could do. I think we could do. I mean, again, we could do a different map. We've done a different map before, and I didn't really like that map that much. But there are many maps that could be done. We could maybe like manually change the status of certain train lines and be like, we're saying this is high speed.
Yeah.
We're saying this is high
I think
speed.
we might need to take a closer look at the high speed classifications potentially, because they've always been weird. The problem is it's like every system for classifying them ends up having vulnerabilities, and also like maybe there's a perfect one, but then that often gets complicated to administrate. Like the system that we go by is just what the Eurail says. Eurail has already done this classification on their end. We're using Eurail passes. And so we say, we would much prefer that we in the moment are not trying to figure these things out. We
You have
just
to like look up your own separate table of like, wait, what is this one? Yeah.
We're like, Eurail is the European train people, and they've done a classification. So that's what we're going to use. But I mean, it has led to weaknesses. So I think maybe there are ways of adjusting it. And then also, yeah, I think, still the coins thing is a difference maker. Like, I mean, Michelle and I, there were a few instances where we got a lot of coins pretty easily, which I also think, to steel man the argument of critics, I think that a critique that I saw often, which I thought was fair enough, was I saw people being like, it's not that I'm upset that someone made it to their end location. It's that I feel like Adam and Michelle didn't do anything extraordinary to make it to their end location. Like, I saw people being like, when I, in season 2, almost made it to Borkum, people were like, I would have been fine with Adam winning there because he had some crazy challenge performance to get there, right? Whereas I would say there was no standout, oh my gosh, Adam and Michelle did something brilliant to make it on their way there, right? It was more just like slow, steady, continued success and progress on challenges and like some strategic calls, right? But there wasn't one big mind-blowing moment, which I am sympathetic to. I think that if with more difficult challenges, it might have felt more earned for us to have gotten the coins to make that final run potentially.
Well, this is just the problem with reality. And like it is, the longer we do this show, the more I understand why other reality shows take such a heavy hand with various things. Because it's like, narratively speaking, reality is very unsatisfying sometimes. And like the way you would consume this as a fictional story, it's like, well, if you guys are going to win in this unprecedented way, you've got to have done something epic. And certainly if you are just going normal style, and then, for example, Brian and I do something epic, and we take that flight, then surely that should counteract it. But in fact,
right. And it almost does. It's so close.
I know. It's and we even got in early, man. We even got in early.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that like the more opportunities you have to do something extraordinary, the less likely you are to actually succeed, because it takes those really close calls for you to do that. But I think that's, I think for me at least, it's like, I don't need to see something extraordinary happen every time just because you succeeded, just because this was the first success. doesn't mean that it needed to be that earned, although I do understand the desire for it, because that is a really rare circumstance that you would have like a super close call, pull something off, and then that also lead to the win, at least with the way that like reality is, or but that also that the game is designed. It's just like the closer the chasers get to you, the less likely it is you're really going to be able to get to the end. And so the closer they are, the more likely you are to have those tense interactions that really are a lot of fun. So it's a tough balance, and I think with this particular format, I think that it's mostly fine if it's a rare instance. Like for instance, when I watched you, Adam, make your way up to your end zone on that previous season that you were talking about, I was like, damn, like he made it that far and then nothing.
All got erased, right?
It all got erased.
It was
it was all for
so
naught.
hard to get on the ferry. They're so infrequent that it was like, it can feel unsatisfying in that direction, right? I mean, we end up with a pretty fortunate situation where Ben pulls 2 crazy moves at the end. I think that that season ends up feeling very satisfying. But yeah, I mean, it's all a crazy, stew of different incentives and ways that things can play out, and like getting it to play out exactly how you would want it scripted, like you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I really enjoy that aspect, and I think that personally, my experience watching a lot of these shows is that like it's not that bad to have a game that plays out in this way, as long as it doesn't turn into like every game plays out this way. That's when you really need to start looking at things, because it did seem like there were some extraordinary circumstances surrounding this particular run, but that's part of what made it interesting to me. But when it comes to the challenge difficulty as well, I just personally see it as such a push and pull, because if the challenges are too difficult, then it's just you're constantly being caught. Nobody makes it to their end zone,
Right.
and there's not like a strong, runner
and I
narrative.
think that we were a little bit I think that in a little bit we were correcting a bit from tag 3, where I think people got really boxed in,
Right.
Yeah.
and up until the very end, nobody could get anywhere, right? And so I think we were, and again, I do stand by what Ben said, which is like, we were not intending to make really a significant adjustment to challenge strength. I think we were trying to make a moderate, a quite moderate shift. But yeah, it's like, we had the opposite problem, I would argue, in that season. So yeah, it's just a very tricky balance. But I also do want to say, because I feel like, look, we're almost a half hour in here. We're not here. This is not about us doing a mea culpa. I still think the season is pretty good.
I do too.
I
unfortunately cannot be the voice of the criticism, because I really liked it.
No, I stand by that. Like, I agree. As I've said, I think the challenges were a little too easy. I think that got exacerbated by some things. I think, there are imperfections, certainly. But I stand by that, like, the season overall, I think, is really fun. Like, I think there's a lot of fun stuff that happens. I think the second place round is really fun. Like, I think there's a lot of really fun challenge stuff with me and Ben and Brian, like a lot of fun route finding there, a lot of fun close calls. Like, those delays get really crazy. Like, they're right on our heels for a long time. Like,
yeah, the fact that they were right there and then got stopped is wild. And I can understand why people would be disappointed. Some people might be disappointed by it, but like, I really, like, you were about to get on their train, and then that didn't happen. Like, it's so wild that you were gonna get on their train, and then you're like, it's been delayed too much.
I thought that was exciting. I remember we literally, like, we've said in ad reads and stuff, we were like, the second place round is really exciting, and we really felt that way. Like, we were editing and we were like, oh, this is really exciting, this is really great. We were really worried that people were going to tune out and not watch it, but then people on fucking Reddit were like, Ben and Adam lied to us. Why did they lie to us? It was bad. And I was like, oh, I didn't think we were lying.
It's the classic Jeff Probst, who always hypes up Survivor seasons, and it just never ends up well for him when he tries, because people just disagree with him about what's exciting, and then they're like, we can't trust you, Jeff.
I know, but it's like, I believe Jeff. I believe that Jeff believes that in his heart of
Exactly.
hearts.
Yeah.
Well,
I do.
I also think that, like, I don't know, like, Survivor is usually still pretty good. Like, I think that, and maybe this is just my bias as somebody who edits reality TV and unscripted stuff, but I don't know. I watch almost every, especially modern seasons of Survivor, like the season that we're having right now. It's been kind of chalky up till now.
Mhm.
Like, it has not been the most exciting, but I still watch it and I'm like, I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to suggest that, like, I don't want things to, be excellent, but I feel like I watched it. I'm like, there's still so much here to love. Like, there's so much great editing. There's so many fun things. Like, there's fun chat. There's all this, great stuff. And then it is, I think I do agree with what Ben said. It's like sometimes when I need some perspective on, like, how people on Reddit talk about things, I go to the Survivor Reddit, and it's like everyone on that is like, this show is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, you go on that, you're like, this, yeah, it's like they must be like killing their parents on live TV.
The truth, though, is, like, I also feel like it is worth noting, like, I actually think that it is kind of lame, though, for us to spend too much time criticizing people on Reddit who, it's like, people who are fans of the show have every right to go on Reddit and discuss it and critique it and all those things. And frankly, there's an argument that we shouldn't even be reading that stuff. Like, it's not for us. Like,
I like reading
fans have every right, to go and discuss and critique, and, like, that's a space. A subreddit for a show is for them, right? It's not like they're sending us hate mail, right? It's like they are discussing it on Reddit and we're going over there and reading it. So, like, I don't want to be like, screw you guys. It's like they have, it's well within their purview to go on Reddit and talk about what they liked or didn't like. That's the place.
I will defend it to the ends of the earth. And again, I see it as like, again, I think it's like a creative practice to take a piece of media you love and think about how you would make it better and
Totally.
what you would change. Like, that to me is like thoughtful engagement. And
Well,
I
and
would
in
never
some ways, that's how we created this show,
totally.
is by
Yeah.
looking at other pieces of media
Yeah.
and critiquing them and finding ways that we thought we could do it differently or better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically a professional complainer about shows I love, and I do it, and I think that the people in the Reddit probably as well, like, they do it out of, it's an expression of love, that they care so much that they're analyzing
course.
things and like saying, like, this isn't what worked for me, and I do think it's valuable feedback, even though I think with this one, I'm not sure that I'm completely with them. I think I can see that the challenges were maybe a little too easy, but I did really enjoy the season. But the criticism in general is always such an interesting thing, and I completely agree with you, Adam, as somebody that that sort of is part of it, but also deals with it. Like, you do have to give people space to engage and talk about things, especially when they're doing so out of a sense of fandom. I think the last thing I'll touch on, I guess, then with the challenges is, for me, my sense of, like, challenge analytics is, does it lead to interesting footage in the places that you're going? And I think that something that I do feel like I missed from this season was just a little more exploration at the places rather than, like, being in the train stations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
There
that's
was
probably
like,
fair.
I think there was maybe not even a single instance this season of someone like missing a train time. At least because they had to do challenges. Like, we missed train times because
Technically, we did in Castle because we failed that.
Oh,
challenge.
right at
failed the
right at
one,
the
yeah.
very end. Yeah, right at the
Although
very end.
technically the train you were trying to get to eventually was delayed, so you didn't actually miss it.
Also
Yes.
true. And then we ended up not taking it at all. But yeah, no, it's true. It's like we were in the station filling time between that train and the next train and then on the next train, and I think that's not it's not how it's designed, right? Like, ideally, the challenges should sometimes force you to take a worse train option, because if you are always taking the best train option, then they're never going to catch up to you. Um, yeah. I mean, I think that, like, there were a bunch more, like, longer, more involved challenges in the deck that just never came up.
It's true.
And
Well,
had they
but I
come
would
up,
say it's not entirely true, Ben, because like there are plenty of routes that we would have taken in the second place round if not for coin limitations. Like we didn't exactly miss frequencies, but we took slower routes because we were avoiding high speed trains that we could have gotten us places faster.
that's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
less so that you like didn't make it to a train, but more so that you decided against taking a train entirely because you didn't have the budget for it.
Yeah. But there
Yeah.
was never really an instance where it's like, we got to go do something involved in this place. I think
Right.
the most involved
Right.
challenges were like Amy's puzzle box or
It's true.
something like that.
No, but that is a fair point, Taran. I mean, I think, it's really a matter of the season where like I would argue that it's usually been the case in tag that challenges don't take you that far from the train station necessarily. I think that maybe there was a little bit less of that this season than in other tags, but I think a lot of it is that those challenges are designed to be doable pretty much anywhere. And so that is typically going to mean that you just have to, they usually will be doable kind of nearish the train station. Cause I think that like, it's usually not like one thing that we typically would find to not be interesting is like somebody gets caught because they pull a challenge that they just straight up cannot do in the place where they are because it's impossible to do there. And then there's nothing that they did wrong, but they can't keep going.
Yeah.
And so they get caught. Right.
Yeah. And sort of like I said before too, it's like the longer you make the challenges, the more involved they are, the more the runners are nerfed and they get caught maybe too often.
Right.
And so it's I think a tricky thing to balance
But
there.
but I mean, can we tease? I think we could tease. We are working on a season where I think this will be less of a concern.
Well, we felt for a while that we have not had a good sort of very challenge centric, very travel sort of season. I think our seasons have been pretty like mechanically dense as
Transportation
of late.
heavy
And
strategic
heavy.
Yeah.
And I think we're trying to break that cycle a little bit on season.
So I would
17.
say Schengen Showdown did a pretty good job of this. I'd say that was
I think so.
I thought Schengen Showdown, and Schengen Showdown I think is a really good example of the kind of balance that we want ideally, because I would say something like New Zealand was maybe a little too, there was so much time dedicated to just doing stuff and going places and not actually that much gameplay. But the tough thing is, and we've said this before, there are different buckets of our audience that like different things, and you can't can't make a perfect season for everybody.
Well, and also I would say, I mean, our next season, which this is no secret, is Hide and Seek UK. And one thing that I love about Hide and Seek is that it naturally solves this problem because the hider is in a place and they are exploring it because that's the only place where they can be. And typically hiders pick pretty interesting places to go. And so it just naturally does this in a way that I find very satisfying. And so I think that will also scratch that itch for people.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing I wanted to mention with this season is that I felt like watching tag. I guess I would classify this as a Sam heavy strategy of stocking up coins for a future run.
Sure.
That seemed to be the broken strategy up until this season, right? Where like that was his strategy. He got a bunch of coins. He was ready to go. And throughout the entire season, I just felt this lingering weight of like, as soon as Sam gets a run, they're going to take off. They're never going to stop. And yet the balance that was made for the season prevented that from being utilized. Granted, it still could have if the trains hadn't
Could
been
have.
delayed the way that they were.
Yeah.
But that I guess I will speak in favor of some of the balancing. That's part of why I liked how easy it was to get off the ground. Where like, for instance, Adam, if you and Michelle had gotten caught right before you'd gone up to the observatory, you would have had 0 coins.
Yep.
And so even if you did somehow manage to catch up to somebody and tag them, you would have started from an incredibly bad position. It would be really difficult to find out like how would they even have a chance versus another team that didn't go as aggressively, didn't go as ambitiously, and had a bunch of coins stocked up. So I think that's sort of in favor of the ability for a team to sort of like keep moving quickly.
No, it's true. I mean, I think that a lot of people left season 3 being like, no, that's the busted strat. And it turned out it was not this time. I'll also say one thing, this never came up, but we actually had increased the second run bonus this season to, I think, 1,000. I think we had really beefed it.
Oh yeah, I forgot that we did that, but we did, yeah.
Yeah, because of this exact thing of it was, we felt players had too much of a disincentive to use up their coins and really go for it early. And so we had given you more coins when you got to go a second time.
It's a good call. I like that.
Yeah, but never came up. It's one of those fine print things that that you know doesn't always see its moment.
Well, strategically, we've talked about game design a lot, but strategically, has this variation of tag influenced how you might want to play future versions? Obviously, any game mechanic tweaks might change that, but like, for instance, we saw a lot of following behind the runner in this season that didn't work out super well. Do we think that chasers will be a little more aggressive in future tag seasons to try to get in front of them?
Very well could. I mean, I think one thing, and like this is the nice thing about a season going a little awry, is it raises the stakes for a future season, right? Like if we play tag again, all of a sudden everyone's gonna be like, the threat of getting to the end location, this is very real. We've seen it happen. It could happen again. It could happen at any moment. And so I do think that like you might be less likely to see the sort of mitigation that the chasers sometimes do of like, well, we don't have to take that big of a risk to get in front of them because we'll catch up to them eventually. And it's like, I don't know, maybe you won't. If they're able to always stay one train frequency ahead.
I would say that, I mean, it would depend on the other ways we adjusted the balance. Like, again, I think going forward, we probably would make challenges take a little longer and stuff, but I think it does make me more compelled by strategies where you potentially take a flight to create a wall, right? Because it's often the case that a flight, a decision to, in an early aggressive move of get a flight and truly just get ahead of them and cede ground, but it's worth it. Like, I think that is a more defensible strat now than it was in the past, certainly.
And I mean, I think that largely that what this is going to affect is not necessarily our strategy in game, but also how we would design a future season of tag. I think we would make a lot of changes.
So I want to ask more about the team format. So the 3-team format and the teams of 3. I mentioned that I thought it was very fun. How did you guys feel about it, both filming and also in the edit and also like the end results? Is this something that you might be open to doing more of in the future?
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I will say that I really dug the 3-team format. I think it added a lot of fresh strategy to the game that we have not seen before, of, you know, having to, you know, deal with the other team and, you know, consider the fact that, you know, you're competing with these people you have a shared, you know, shared interest with. You know, I thought that was all really fun and interesting. I will say though that like practically it's a little complicated in the sense that like we typically don't like for people to be filming solo more than is necessary. Like I think that we view filming solo as like a necessary compromise for certain game formats like tag and hide and seek, but it's always our preference that people have someone else with them when they are filming, which means that in order to do a 3-team format, you probably need 6 people. And that is complicated for multiple reasons, including just cost, like getting that many people to the right part of the country and paying for their travel and lodging and that stuff. It's also complicated from, as Ben mentioned, like a storytelling perspective for us. Like, I mean, I know that like Survivor has a ton of people, but we typically operate with much smaller numbers of people and operators. And one thing that allows us to do that's very different from a show like Survivor is that you really see everything. I mean, not everything, but you are following step by step by step, really every meaningful choice that is being made by every player in the game. Whereas Survivor has to make a lot more editorial choices about what's happening and what isn't. Not only do we like showing you things from a step by step basis, it's also simpler and faster from an editing perspective. I'm editing a show right now that is a little, it's not like Survivor really at all tonally, but it is like we have a ton of footage and we're having to make a lot more intentional editorial choices about how we are presenting the narrative. And it just takes way longer. It's just a much more time intensive process to do. Anyway, this is all a really long way of me saying that while I like the 3-team format, I think there are various logistical and production reasons that I don't know that we would jump to doing it again. But if we can find the right fit for it, I think it is fun, right? And I did, and there were a lot of parts of it that I liked.
And I think, again, we went in with certain assumptions about things that would be problems that ended up not being problems. And I think, you know, like we had basically a rule for ourselves that like we weren't going to have more than 2 teams after capture the flag, and we had more than 2 perspectives, and it got really complicated. They were just like, we're not going to do that anymore. And so we tried it again, and this time I think it was fine. And so that I do think it would probably theoretically make us more open to it in the future. But I would also say that like I think in some ways we got lucky with the way that this played out narratively, that it wasn't too complicated, that like when like that the chaser teams were either together or one of them was so far behind that they were
That they
like
were
basically
irrelevant.
not in play. And so
They
we
were
were
basically
able to
like a
really
C story runner, comedic
yeah.
comic relief almost. You didn't really
Yeah.
have to follow them strategically.
And so it ended up actually just for that reason being pretty easy to handle narratively. But I could also see versions where this played out in a way that was like a lot harder to make coherent. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I do think it's fun though. But yeah, I can see. I think also a thing about how you guys run your show is that like I think this worked a lot better also because it was all stars. It wasn't just like 3 new people. Because having to
Exactly. That's the
introduce
other
that
thing.
many
Yeah,
new
like
people,
introducing new people is
yeah, it's which is a problem I think a lot of other shows have, which is just like there's so many people. It takes a while to really start to know who they are or root for them. You know, if All Stars Tag was the first season that a person watched of Jet Lag, it might feel like a little bit of like, well, there's a lot here, and I don't know who these people are. Versus, I think, you know, season 1 of Tag, where it's 3 people, and I'm getting to know
right.
them.
And I think I've experienced this when like, you know, various people have made shows or fan versions or whatever things that are inspired by jet lag or even, you know, aren't necessarily but are sort of in our style. And I've often watched them and just been like, who are these people? Like there's too many of them. I
Mm,
don't feel invested in them because there's too many and I don't know who they are. And so like
right.
I do think that, you know, we have tended to believe that, especially for a new viewer, like 3 new people for you to get to know is already kind of a lot for you to be invested in, at least the way that we do our show. And so, you know, we do, I think, still view introducing you to a lot of new people with some skepticism.
I did really like the teams of three, though. I thought that it was very cool to have, even just from a practical level, be able to film two people at once from a perspective.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We put in there's a shot in the trailer where I'm holding the camera and Ben and Brian are running and you don't see me. And I remember saying that I'll be curious to see if because there are people, and one person in particular, who breaks down our trailers to predict various things. I'm curious if people caught that, because if you notice that shot, you notice I can see Ben and Brian running. You have to say, well, who's holding the camera?
Right.
And then you have to be like, well, then what does that mean is happening? Now, I think that you could very reasonably make the assumption that this just means there are two teams of chasers together.
Right. Yeah.
Which is probably the explanation. But it is funny that that shot gives away that they have a third team member.
I watched that guy's trailer breakdown, and he addressed that clip.
Oh, he did?
And he believed that it was you. He could tell by the gait. There were several times
I feel like
where
I could tell by Sam's gait, but I don't know if I could do Adam or Ben.
there were several times where it was like, I'm pretty sure this clip is being filmed by Adam based on the way. But anyway, or maybe that was a thing that the gate thing is something I saw in Discord. But he addressed this this clip in his video, and he thought that you were chasing us.
Oh, yeah, that was I thought that was also a possibility.
Yeah.
Well, I now thinking about it as well, it would be very easy to determine Adam's gate, because it would just be perfectly timed on every second, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. You can set a clock to
it. Okay, so what is the future of tag? You mentioned, like, if we do it again, obviously it's been a staple. This feels like kind of a culmination with the all-stars and everything. Is there a new status? Is something changed based on this season? What is the status of tag?
We literally have not discussed it.
Yeah, it's true.
To be entirely real with you, we have not. But look, it has been very nice to have staple formats, because I think probably one of the more complicated and stressful parts of our job is to come up with new games all the time. And so often we come up with new games and we're like, oh, that's tag again. Oh, that's
oh my gosh
again.
We reinvent games all the time.
Yeah. You just get like partway into it and you're like, wait a minute.
It's tag.
Yeah.
Or it'll be like it's mostly tag, right?
Right.
Like a lot of the difficulty of coming up with new games is making things that aren't just basically something else, but just a tiny bit different, which I feel like we end up accidentally doing all the time when we brainstorm. Yeah. But in terms of the future of tag, I mean, again, I agree with Ben. I mean, I don't know. We really have not discussed it meaningfully. But I would say that, like, I don't think that the next time we do tag, it's going to be like the three of us on the original tag map doing the whole thing normal. Like, I think if you look at the progression of tag, what it was the first season, which was a new, completely new game. We do all this stuff. The second time we do tag, it is sort of an experiment to be like, we've never repeated any game format at all, but people really love this season, and we are going to play the exact same game in the exact same place and show that it could play out completely differently. And I felt that season achieved that goal. I think tag 2 is actually maybe the best of the 4 tags. Maybe a hot take, but
no, I think that's a fair. I loved 1 mostly because it was one of the first ones I watched, jet lag seasons, but 2 is also very, very good.
So that's what 2 was. 3 was, let's put tag on a new map, right? Which is something that we now do with like hide and seek, for example, right? And I think that games where we can put them on new maps are great because they allow us to use a fundamental game format that we like, but to do it in a new place that makes it fresh in that way. And then obviously this one, it was like, we talked a lot about doing a jet lag all stars, and I think that we just loved the idea of like, we're going to do the original tag map, like the iconic original tag map, the season that kind of really made the channel into what it is, right? Was the first tag. And we were like, tag's never been played with guests. And so we were like, the best, if we're going to bring all the jet lag guests back, we should have them play the most iconic jet lag game in the most iconic location, original tag map, but with this new format that we introduced. So like, I would argue that like each season there's been something fresh about what we're doing, even though in season 2 of tag, the fresh thing was that we were repeating it, but we had never repeated anything before. So it was almost like novel to do something that we had already done, right? To replay a game. So I think if we ever did tag again, which again, I truly have no idea if we will or not, we would have to find some reason that it had something fresh about it. And I think that could be a ton of different things.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think I don't think there's like a reason to retire it forever. Even if you didn't come up with something new, I think like a couple of years from now, and you're on season 30, if you still haven't done tag, I think it's fine to be like, let's run it back. Like I think at that point you're probably going to be. I think everybody's probably going to be like, come on, let's do just a little tag, just a little bit. But I totally see where you come from on that as well. So I assume that means you haven't thought of like, or maybe you have before, like where would you situate a new tag?
It's really hard. We don't know, and it's really hard to do because we've looked into this before, and it's a lot harder than you would think. I think that like
I can imagine
we didn't even shift the map that much when we did tag 3, and even that we were like, oh, this map was kind of tough. Like it had flaws, and so it's really not easy to find a place where you can do the tag map with the triangle, with the equidistant places, and it all balances out. Like it's tricky. So I genuinely don't know. We would just have to look into it.
What about, we talked about this after Shanghai Showdown. Obviously that season you had Amy create all the challenges. In talking about all the challenges this season, that I think that topic has been brought up again. Like, what about not having you guys create the challenges, even if it isn't only Amy? Maybe Amy gets a team or something of challenge makers.
Wouldn't that be nice? I'm sure Amy would love that.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, well, I think, I loved the challenges in Schengen, right? I think Amy did a great job with them. She's a great challenge writer. I also think that the fact that you are writing a challenge that the person doing it doesn't know in advance opens up a lot of options for you to do like things you couldn't do otherwise, because, if I know what a challenge is going in, a lot of times I can prep for how I'm going to do it beforehand. So I also just think it leads to that really fun moment of when we discover what the challenge is, and then we have to figure out how to handle it. And, maybe we're not in the perfect place, or maybe, all these things. I mean, what we did in that season was, I don't want to take any credit away from Amy, who was certainly the primary creative force behind most of those challenges. But like, we did try to support her through like suggesting generic versions of challenges that she could then slot to a place and make them more specific. Like, we did like workshop challenges where like I didn't know the exact specifics of what it was, but I knew enough that I could work through a lot of it with her, even though I didn't know where it would be. Like, and I think that there are opportunities to do things like that even more, where like we can still play a role in taking the burden of work off of her and contributing, but we still don't have full knowledge of what's going to happen, which I think adds a fun dimension. So like, I'm definitely interested in more seasons where we don't have full knowledge of challenges, and Amy is, does a lot of support in making that possible. A lot of it just depends on if the game calls for it, if it makes sense, right? Like, I think that There's only one thing, I guess, that I don't like about seasons like that, which is that they feel a little less board gamey, right? Like, you know, the innovation of having a deck of challenges that you shuffle was something that we came up with in season 1 to solve the very practical problem of how do we handle the fact that the people writing the challenges have to do the challenges, right?
Right.
And actually, it's more of a narrative problem than anything. I think we've talked about this before, but, you know, I think one of the biggest weaknesses with New Zealand was that we had full knowledge of all 70 whatever challenges that were written. And in order to understand our decisions, you, the audience, needed to understand every challenge that we were going to hit when we went one way or the other. And it was too much information to try to portray to the audience so that they could follow along with our thought process. So like decks are a great option where technically we know everything in the deck, but we don't know what's going to come up next. So we're not really ahead of you as an audience member. We just know there's this deck of challenges and who the heck knows what's going to come up, right? But there is something that I like about that the game is like a board, like in Monopoly, right? Like you just play the, like, I can know all the cards and all the properties and all the things, and it's still a great game, right? I think there's an elegance to games where everything doesn't have to change, right? Where it can just be like you do have knowledge of everything and the game still works really well. There's a board gaminess to that I enjoy. Like hide and seek does this, for example, right? Like, you know, people can play that game over and over again with the same deck, and I think it's still a really fun game, right? So that's the only thing that I dislike about games where we have to do that. But all of that said, I'm definitely interested in potential games in the future where Amy takes on more of that role, because I think she's really good at it. And I do think it leads to a lot of interesting opportunities for drama and tension that, you know, we don't always have.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask was about the win. Obviously, I mentioned this at the top that like most shows, if somebody wins the game, you know, that's the end. Right?
Yeah,
like
sure.
I have to imagine that you had a little, it felt to me like you had a little bit of fear, like, hey, don't worry, we're still doing stuff. And part of that was like the episode structure where you won like 15 minutes in and then started the next round immediately and got into the next bit, so that in my head it was like, so that people don't end the episode, you win, think the season's over, or not care enough to continue, right? But I thought it worked really well. Like the fact that, you know, even though you were playing for second place, it didn't feel any less worthy or valuable.
Yeah, I do. You know, I do wish we could have stayed with the win moment a little bit longer. It would have been nice.
I did feel that a little bit as well. Yeah, I was
But,
like, yeah,
you know, as you're pointing out, we just really didn't want, because if you watch a retention graph of our final episode, you see that someone has declared the winner, and it just goes, and so it's like we need to like get into the next thing right away. But also, I actually don't really think we had filmed anything up there because we were also
right.
tired that we went and we like ate some stuff, and Michelle fell asleep. And we just did not.
You didn't even end up
We
taking the picture, right? That's what you said in the layaway.
No, Michelle really wanted to take a picture of everyone
Yeah.
together, and we did not.
We
get the
didn't.
pic.
No.
Tough
So there wasn't really anything to show anyway. But you know, whatever.
But yeah, it is true that that was part of it. I mean, we were like, you know, the best way to do this to keep people engaged, given what happens, is to give them a lot of the second place round in an episode. We were like, there's a version of this where we end the episode late in the episode, Michelle and I win, and then we'd throw 10 minutes of the second place round to give you a little taste on the end, and then we keep going. And we were kind of like, I feel like it'd be so easy to ignore that last little bit in that circumstance. But if we really give you a juicy chunk of the second place round, we were like, that's gonna, you know, hopefully it'll really engage you. And I think that the second place round, I stand by that. I think the second place round is really fun, and I would argue more fun than the first place round in terms of how a lot of stuff plays out. But yeah, I would also say there was another part of it. Well, there are a few things. Another part of it is frankly that there was not a good cut where the win happens really late in an episode, just in terms of where the other good cliffhangers and ends of episodes pop up. Like there wasn't a good edit where that even was how it worked, as far as we could tell. And then I would also add that like one thing that I really liked about this format was I think it really threw people off of the scent that we were going to win. Because I think a lot of people finish episode 3 and they go,
Yeah,
well, they can't win because then the next episode would only be 15 minutes. And so I think a lot of people, I think in part we were trying to use the normal pace of these things against people's intuition, because I think that from our perspective playing, we felt it was quite likely that we were going to make it. But I think from an audience perspective, we wanted to do as much as possible to still make it tense, make it feel, close. And it was close. I mean, honestly, closer than Michelle and I even realized in the moment. But like, I think that using that audience expectation against people's intuition helped a lot in making it so that people up until really the last minute kind of think we're going to get caught, hopefully.
Yeah. I thought for sure when they brought up the observatory, what was it? The cog rail?
The cog railway. Yeah.
Well, I was like,
one thing that's sorry, go ahead.
I was just like, no way you're going to both figure it out and get lucky enough that there's a train running that's apparently absurdly expensive right when you need it.
So expensive.
Crazy. No, well, it was funny. I mean, I think this came up. I think we've talked about this before, but one thing that I think is a really like big what if on this season is it was just lucky that the curse that got Michelle and I enough coins to make our run gave us enough surplus to also make it up the cog railway, because we had, especially because we didn't have our phones, right? Like we had not done the math of the additional train cost up the cog railway. And if we were going to stop when we reached the number we had written down for what it takes to get to Zermatt. Like we would have stopped doing challenges. And it was only when we were on our way that I remembered, oh, wait, it might cost coins to get to the top. I think in my head, I was like, I don't know, maybe you walk it or maybe it's a gondola. I don't know what it is, right? I really had not considered it.
Well, you had to, like, you saw the map too that saw that it was a whole separate station.
I didn't even know what it was. And so there was every chance in the world. It honestly was total luck that I didn't end up looking like an idiot and just straight up not having enough coins to go up there, because it just happened to be the case that the curse we got was valuable enough that it wasn't an issue.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I thought it was really fun. I tend to enjoy, again, just the fact that all of these things could happen and they're part of the show and they're part of the narrative, I think is really fun for me, because it really does add stakes to future seasons as well, where it's like, yeah, somebody could just win, or somebody's train could just get stopped for an hour or two. And so I really enjoyed that part of it. It really did keep me guessing. I really, really thought they were going to get you, and it was just going to come down to like, can they get to essentially all?
And I think they would have.
Yeah, I mean they twice, right?
Having paths back in. Yeah,
I mean it. Yeah. It was tight. It was tight.
And I don't even say we were sure. We really thought we were going to get caught. I mean, and as you saw, we would have been stupid not to think that, because the only reason we didn't get caught was these crazy delays that they experienced. But like, we kind of couldn't believe that we managed to pull it off and actually win the second place round. We were convinced that we were going to get got, and that it was really just going to be a question of, could we catch them again or force it to be like a tie or something in the neutral zone. Like
Mhm.
the idea that we could actually win the second place round was kind of crazy to us.
My big thing in Castle when I was watching the finale was once you failed the ball rolling one, um, I was like, should you? At that point, I think in my headspace, it was like, okay, surely you have to assume that you're going to be caught, right? But I think the main difference was that you didn't realize initially that they were on the tree. You thought they were trying to still cut
We
you
thought
off.
they were moving
But
around.
my thought process was like, okay, at this point, when does it make sense to stop even trying to get back onto a train and just
Yeah.
like rat mode into the city and get as far away as possible so that it's harder for them to catch a train out?
Right. And I mean, there was even more discussion of that than is in the episode, I think, because there was a while where we were considering taking a tram just into the
Mm.
city, just
Mhm.
to random places. I think that at the time, you know, I mean, Ben, you probably remember that discussion too. I remember, I think Brian kept being like, surely it's impossible for them to get back to their zone or to get to the neutral zone or anything at this point. And we kept looking and being like, it's actually not. Like, it's actually, you would be surprised. Like, there's still what, like 4.5, whatever hours left. And like, they could get into the neutral zone in like 2 hours on a high speed train. And we knew also they had so many coins.
Mhm.
And so, you know, obviously what you see is that in the end, we do go RHAP mode. But I think that we still felt that there was real value in getting further from the neutral zone because like going RHAP mode means that if you do get caught, you haven't actually gotten further from where they want to get. So they often will have faster routes back down, right? That was why we were still fixated on trying to get further into our territory because we
Right.
really wanted to make it so that they could not get even into the neutral zone. But no, I mean, ultimately, I think RHAP mode, you know, clearly it was the right call.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you guys wanted to talk about or bring up?
Watch Scav.
Oh yeah, watch Scav. Oh, that's a good
Scav.
one. Yeah, a
Did you
little
do that on
plug.
intentionally to open it with release? We want to see the list or
Okay,
whatever.
no, we didn't even think about that. Is actually, I didn't even know what people were talking about at first. They were like, "Oh, real bait and switch." I was like, "What are you talking about? Bait and
Wait,
switch?"
what are you
Oh, do you
talking about?
remember this? People think that they're talking about the Epstein list
Yeah.
in the trailer.
You open the
The
trailer with a
show
bunch of people
opens.
at what seems like a protest saying
Yeah, it seems
release
like
the
they're at
list
a
or something.
protest saying we want the
That's
list. People thought it was like the
interesting.
Epstein list.
I never considered that.
Do they even
No.
call it a list? I thought they called them the files, like the Epstein files. Is it the
I
list?
feel like
I guess there's a
Files
sometimes
is
they
list.
I guess
probably,
sometimes they say the list.
I think list is out there, yeah,
That's
Sure.
as a term.
interesting.
Yeah, no, did not even consider it for a single moment. But yeah, no, you're right, Ben. We should plug Scav. This is good. This is good. We're
Yeah,
using
no, this is
platform
great.
promotion. Scav is a series that I directed, that Ben and Sam produced along with the rest of us at Wendover Productions, including Amy, and other team members who are not people on camera, such as Christine and Tristan and Alex. Anyway, it is about the world's largest annual scavenger hunt, which happens every year at the University of Chicago. It's mostly done by students, but there are also alums involved. It's an enormous 20-page, 348-item list. And it's total chaos. It's basically 4 days of like sleepless chaos where these students, while they also all have class, by the way, which is sort of a hilarious part of it, are trying to collect, perform, create all of the items on this list. It's sort of a cross between a competition series and a docu-series. It's not edited really quite like, it's not edited quite like a reality competition series, but it's not quite edited exactly like a docu-series. It sort of sits in between those two things. I would say that it's sort of, it sits a little bit in the middle of like Drive to Survive is like a docu-series about a competition, and then like Survivor is like a competition series, and I would say this sits in between those two things a little bit. Although I will also note, the competition, while very fun and silly, is ultimately, you know, this is not Survivor. It is more about sort of people doing a thing that they love than it is about a cutthroat battle for the top. But there's a lot of fun competition elements to it. And yeah, I don't know. I think that it is like a fun, fresh type of kind of competition series that's like very silly and very creative and very sweet and surprisingly like emotional at times. And I'm quite proud of it. We've been working really hard on it for a really long time, and it's been really hard, frankly. I'd say it's like the hardest thing that I have ever made. But I've been very pleased with how it's come out, and I would encourage people. I think that the final 2 episodes really, really rip. So I think all the episodes are good, but I would say that if you're interested in it and you start watching it, trust me, the end, things really rock. So you know, give it a go. Give it a go. I think if you watch the whole series, you will leave feeling that you watched something really, really cool and satisfying.
That's interesting. Yeah. How many people participate in the?
Hundreds.
Like hundreds.
Yeah, that sounds ridiculously difficult.
It's crazy. Well, it's really crazy.
I remember in pre-production, I used to say like, this event feels like it was specifically designed to be actively hostile towards being captured by cameras.
Right.
Like it was a huge logistical and creative challenge to even find a way to document this thing. And without trying to throw shade on any previous people who have attempted it, there have been a few attempts in the past to capture it, done, I think, you know, sometimes by, you know, more like semi-professional groups, and, you know, to varying levels of success. But some of the ones that I've seen are like incomprehensible. And it's just because it's so hard. Like I remember like the first one I watched was basically incomprehensible. And I was like, oh my God, like how do you tackle this thing? So you can also watch it if you want to, just from there's a thing that actually I think jet lag does it sometimes, that I think there's a certain quality that this has too, which is that sometimes you're rooting for it just from a perspective of, can these people make a show that's good under the crazy circumstances that they have? It sort of is like you're rooting for the players to win, but you're also just rooting for like, can something that is this sort of much of a high wire act of playing a board game that is played on actual transit systems, can that be a good show when it is as sort of has the potential to go off the rails in the way that it does? I think that there is a way to watch Scab that's just like, can you successfully make a show out of this thing? And if you're interested in finding the answer to that question, you can also watch it.
I think that's a genuine thing, and I think that you have a bit of that with The Getaway as well, where you guys have such a layer of transparency with how you're making things, that the creation of it itself becomes part of the narrative. And I personally find that really compelling. I'm sure that there's a segment of your audience that does, because I think that a lot of those people are the people on Reddit right now who are like thinking about how they would alter the game or the show moving forward. And I think that's really cool. I think it's a really cool part of what you guys do. So I wish you all of the luck, all best of luck with the Scav series. I'm excited to check it out myself. I also have a thing coming out soon. I wrote a book about Big Brother called Behind the Mirror.
Yes.
I've read this book.
You read it?
I've read this book, and folks, it's excellent.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate that.
I think that especially for like me, like as a producer of reality TV, it's really fun to read something like this because I think about a lot of these things all the time. You know, one of my favorite books is Cue the Sun, which is about the history of reality TV. which I imagine you must have read as you were preparing to write this
Well,
book.
unfortunately, that came out after I finished writing, but
Oh no.
but it was very fun to read. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's an excellent book, and people should simply read it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's going to be published next month, November 25th. It will officially be out, but you can pre-order it at taranarmstrong.com. We're also going to have a live event in San Francisco a week from now, where you can get an early copy that is signed by me at the event if you're going. But yeah, Big Brother, the show, you don't need to have watched it. It's the show I've dedicated my life to at this point. It is a very silly show, but it's also a very interesting one, and somebody who even hasn't watched the show like Adam can read the book and
I've watched a little bit of it. I've watched enough that I get it.
Right. Watched a bit of the show. Right. You had watched a little bit of it, right? We forced you guys to watch the premiere.
Yeah, you did. You
forced us to
made
watch
us.
some of it, and I watched most of a season of it. One summer of college.
I hated that show, Taran. I hated it.
Yeah.
Well, you might like the book.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And I will read it. Taran, I will admit I have not read it because I was busy playing video games.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
But I'll do.
Well, the audiobook will also be coming out. So I
Oh,
love to listen
then
to
I can do
audiobooks while I play
both.
video games.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is perfect.
Very fun experience recording an audiobook, I will say.
Oh, did you do the voice? Oh, that's
yes.
fun.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Final plug.
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriend Maeve wrote a book, and it's called Read This to Look Cool, and you should pre-order that. But I just happen to know that like doing your own audiobook is not necessarily like a guarantee. It's like a big thing.
Yeah. It was a huge part of the negotiation for the contract was that we wanted it to be guaranteed, and they would not because
did you have to audition?
I didn't end up having to. Basically, because the publisher themselves sold the rights to the audiobook. This is getting in the weeds, but they couldn't guarantee us because they wouldn't want to have to stipulate that when they sell the rights. So we then had to talk to our audiobook publisher, which was Tantor, from Recorded Books, to be like, hey, it should be me. People would want it. This is my audience. This is an example of me doing a podcast. I promise I'm not going to be terrible at it.
It would be so crazy if you didn't do the audiobook for your book. You are a professional podcaster.
Right. And it's very like first person,
right.
or at least parts of it are. So it made a lot of sense. But yeah, you do sometimes have to audition. Also, they were like, well, you don't have to pay the author as much to do their own audio.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, books are fun. Check out Maeve's book and check out mine.
That's the message of the podcast is mostly to
check out I'd say that's really the takeaway here. If you take away one thing from this,
books are fun. Buy books, especially for ones from us.
Yeah.
When are we getting the jet lag oral history?
I feel like
you see it in real time. What else is there to say?
Plays out every week on the Layover podcast and here on this podcast. I feel like there's almost no history to jet lag that has not already been discussed ad nauseum.
Yeah,
I feel like we have.
Well,
you told that story many times, and it's not even that interesting of a story.
That's where I come in, because the big behind the mirror is not just a history of the show, but also kind of a meta analysis of it and what it means to the culture and what it means to its viewers. So maybe that'll be my project 10 years from now. I'll write a book about jet lag.
No, we need someone who is more of like a media critic to be like, what does all of this mean? Right.
Exactly. I do reference jet lag in the book.
Yes,
I do.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the thing that you do is that, like, I think that you talking about Big Brother and what it is often more interesting than actually watching Big Brother itself. Because I think that you have an ability to sort of be like, well, but this is what it means in like a larger way. This is like the metatextual analysis of like, this is like a media studies thing. This is, especially I think for like me and for Ben as well, like we're very interested in these things. Whereas like sometimes the show can only be what it is, right?
Yep.
You can sort of bring us a sort of fully fuller understanding of what the show kind of can be or what it philosophically is, as opposed to it being a reality of like a literal thing that just airs and is often kind of whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that's very much a core part of the book is like, you know, it means so much. It means so many different things to different people, and it's so different to many of the people that love it than it is to the people who make it. and that's like a very strange contrast to live. But luckily there are creators like you who are very in tune, I would say, with their audience and who read the Reddit threads.
And that's why we must keep reading the Reddit threads.
We have to read the Reddit threads. Well, this
You
is the
must.
problem. I sort of said before, like, we shouldn't be reading the Reddit threads. But on the other hand, I'm like, reading the Reddit threads is good because it keeps us in touch with like what the people who are most engaged with the show think about it, which I do think is like a very useful, creative tool to have for people who are trying to make something.
Yeah. It's a tough thing. It's a tough thing because it's like, especially because, as you said, like, it's not, if somebody were to criticize your show to you, they would do it in a specific way versus in their own space where they're talking to peers and they don't have an expectation that you're reading it. They might talk about it in a different way, which like less care for your feelings. And so, and this isn't just about you. It's, I think, about like any creator who cares about feedback. It's like, it can be tough to venture into those spaces and be able to sort of take it in and take the right things in and not the wrong things, and so on and so forth. But you guys are always, I think, just like experimenting with new things and very much like wanting to make the best thing that you can. And you're so transparent about what you're doing. You know, even when people are disappointed, I think they are disappointed in a way that is like still excited for the next thing to come and still very much in support of what you're doing. And so I think that you've built a really cool community. And so yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys do next. I'm excited for Hide and Seek UK.
It's a fun one. It's good classic hide and seek gameplay.
Some good classic hide and seek. And some nice good H&S.
Well, well, I feel like we've almost ended the podcast a few times, so let's actually do it now.
Let's do it.
Ben, anything else? Anywhere people should find you?
Find me on Reddit, fighting with Redditors in the Reddit threads. No, I'm on I don't know. Do we still say Twitter? I'm on.
No, I think Instagram. I think we're
on
locked
Instagram
in on Insta now.
I'm on Instagram at the Wheat Germ.
Fun fact: when I was doing the audiobook, my audio engineer was like, "You say Twitter. Do you want to change it to X?" And I was like,
"No,
whatever."
And you know what? I think that this is the case on Twitter and Insta, but we can focus on Insta. Ben is always leading me by like 5% in followers. So maybe just follow me. Maybe just help even those numbers out a little
first
bit.
and second place.
I didn't even know this was true, but I would like to keep it up.
No, it's true. No, it's actually even more than 5%. It's like 10%. I have like 30,000 Instagram followers, and you have like 34,000.
You don't post on Instagram though.
Well, that's true, but it doesn't mean that I don't want to have more followers.
Okay.
I feel like this is a new docudrama.
And then it's really close on Twitter. I have 46,000. Ben has 47,000.
Wow.
I know. So think about that.
Think about that.
Think about it. That's what we'll leave you with. Thank you all so much for joining us here to talk about All Stars Tag and also other things like books. Hope you enjoyed, and hopefully we'll see you next season.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.